This episode is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 seller of games and gaming accessories. And GatheringMagic.com, the #1 resource for Magic the Gathering news and articles.
Hey, I'm Mike, and this is my Mayael the Anima deck. Okay, this is my Mayael the Anima deck. This is one of my first EDH decks, and I think it's still my favorite. It's a very, very fun deck to play. It's pretty straightforward. The deck's obviously built around Mayael. She's a 2/3 legendary elf shaman for 3 mana, red, green, and white. So she's obviously not a general that you're probably not going to kill anyone with general beats. I never have before. If it does happen, I'd be very surprised. But where she really shines is her ability. For 3 colorless, a red, green, and white, so 6 mana, you tap her, look at the top 5 cards of your library, and you may put a creature card with power 5 or greater from among them into play. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Wow. So for 6 mana, you get to look at the top 5 cards and decide which big, fat, awesome creature you want, and put it into play without paying its mana cost. So it gets around any color restrictions, you don't have enough mana, anything silly like that. She's really fun. So obviously, being her ability is what makes her shine, you have to build around her. You don't just, use her for her colors and throw a bunch of cards in. So with that, let's move into the land base. Land-wise, I'm only playing 11 basics. Because the deck has such a high mana curve, I don't want lands that just tap for 1 color. I play a lot of dual lands, a couple tri-lands, lands that tap for any color, things like that. So only 4 plains, 3 mountains, and 4 forests. I'll move pretty quickly through the lands since these are pretty straightforward. Temple Garden, Wooded Bastion's a filter land, Sunpetal Grove, straightforward. Plateau, Sacred Foundry. Then we got Rugged Prairie, another filter land. Rootbound Crag, standard dual land. Raging Ravine, I like this card. Yeah, it comes into play tapped, but late game, it's a really relevant land because I can make it a creature. If I need to block, if I'm, someone wipes my board and I'm facing down a general or something like that, I can throw the Raging Ravine under the bus. Or if I want to get those last few points of damage in to kill someone off, make Raging Ravine a creature, he gets bigger, swing. Jungle Shrine taps for 3 colors. Command Tower, it's the best land in EDH. Forbidden Orchard, another land. It's like Command Tower, but it has I guess you can call it a downside. Comes in untapped, taps for any color. The only, as I said, the downside to it, if you can consider it that, is that you have to give one of your opponents a 1/1 colorless spirit. Oh well. I'm paying 6 to get a creature with power 5 or greater. If I have to give someone else a 1/1 in order to get that, I'm willing to do that. It's a good land to kind of play politics with too. Hey, I'll give you a couple blockers or something like that. Don't wail on me, stuff like that. Mosswort Bridge, it's a hideaway land. Really funny things to hide away in this deck I'll show later on. And you have to have creatures with power 10 or greater, and then you can pay a green tap and play the removed card without paying its mana cost. So, pretty cool. Sunhome, yeah, it taps for colorless, but I can give a creature double strike. Homeward Path, it's a meta choice. A lot of my friends play Blatant Thievery, Insurrection, Bribery, things like that, so I like being able to get my creatures back. Slayer Stronghold, the biggest part, the reason I play this land is for the haste. The +2/+0 and Vigilance is convenient. but the haste is what's really relevant. You know, things like Primeval Titan, you know, any of the Titans, anything like that. Someone you want to drop and swing immediately. Nice having haste. Here's Slayer, Stronghold's big brother, Hall the Bandit Lord. I can give a creature haste at the measly cost of 3 life. Not too bad in a 40 life game. Reliquary Tower, no maximum hand size. Temple, 2 colorless mana. Kessig Wolf Run, don't really need to explain this. Trample and pump someone's front side. Strip Mine deals with, you know, any lands that are bothering me. Or, you know, like this one, Mystifying Maze, or Guy's Cradle, or Borg, whatever. Mystifying Maze I like because it exiles the creature, it doesn't just prevent the damage. Kor Haven, prevent damage. Just one thing I do want to make a note of, I do not play Maze of Ith in this deck. I actually don't own one, but even if I did, I wouldn't play it because it does not tap for mana. And being that this is a 3-color deck with a very high mana curve, I don't want a land that's going to sit and not produce mana for me. So I'll play Mystifying Maze and Kor Haven over Maze of Ith. Only a couple fetch lands, Arid Mesa, Naya Panorama, and the Evolving Wilds Terramorphic Expanse. Don't really need to get into those. Alright, let's start getting into the meat of the deck. These next couple cards are to help me set my draws. Sensei's Divining Top, I don't really need to explain this one. You know, pay 1, look at the top 3, put them back in any order. Occasionally I use it to draw a card. Cream of the Crop, 2 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature comes into play, I can look at the top X cards in my library, where X is that creature's power. If I do that, I can put 1 on top and the rest on the bottom of my library in any order. So, late game, I drop Big Dude, I can filter, I can put all those lands and stuff that I don't need on the bottom, and leave a creature on top to hit with Mile. Stuff like that. Mana production and mana searching, or land, you know, land fetch, things like that. Mana Reflection makes my stuff tap for double mana. No downside, really. Druids Repository, this is one of my favorite cards from Abyssin Restored. For 3 mana, you get an enchantment that says whenever a creature you control attacks, I put a charge counter on Druids Repository. I can remove a counter from it and add a mana of any color to my mana pool. So my deck's very it's very aggressive. Obviously, being a bunch of big fatties, you're going to want to swing with them. A lot of them have enter the battlefield triggers, attack triggers, things like that. So there's really no downside to swinging. This just encourages me to do it even more, because I get free mana just for doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Hard to beat. Darksteel Ingot, it's an indestructible mana source. Can't really turn that down, can you? Cultivate, get a couple basics. Solemn, you know, the Emotron. 2/2 that gets me basic, draws me a card when he dies. No complaints there. Sakura-Tribe Elder, he's a rampant growth on a 1/1 stick. So drop him turn 2 or 3, whatever. Use him to block if I need to, or whenever I'm getting ready to get that next land, sack him, get a basic land, put it into play tapped. Spot removal. Aura Shards. Enchantment that lets me destroy artifacts and enchantments whenever I play creatures. Synergizes well with the deck. O-Ring, don't really need to explain that. Creeping Mold helps me deal with artifacts and enchantments, as well as any other lands that are causing me problems. Wraith Charm, I include it in the spot removal because I really only use it to destroy non-basic lands. I occasionally use it for the 3/1/1 Saplings, like if I have Druids Repository out. I very rarely have prevented any damage with it, so I consider it removal just because it's usually a land destruction. Beast Within hits any permanent that I need to deal with. Start getting some Wrath spells and whatnot. Blasphemous Act, 13 damage. Not many creatures stand up to that. Usually it's a board wipe. Austere Command, I love this spell just because I can choose what to destroy. I don't just have to wipe the board. So if I really don't want to lose my creatures, or if I really don't want to lose my enchantments, I don't have to, which I really like. All is Dust, sack all colored permanents, gets around indestructibility, things like that. Good card. Hallowed Burial, this is actually going to become Terminus once I pick one up, but, you know, same effect, tucks creatures, so, again, gets around indestructibility, things like that, pretty cool. Final Judgment, this exiles all creatures, so, again, another thing that gets around indestructibility, stops any of those ridiculous graveyard shenanigans like Mayael the Unhallowed, giving creatures Undying, or Revelark. Any nonsense like that that's going to be constantly making stuff come back from the graveyard, no. Just remove everything from the game. Day of Judgment, don't need to explain that really. Disaster Radius, it's another card that's flavorful to the deck. For 7 mana, I cast it, reveal a creature from my hand. It deals X damage to each creature my opponents control, where X is that card's converted mana cost. So, I cast Disaster Radius, and reveal Blightsteel Colossus. Everybody else's creatures take 12. So it's kind of like it's essentially Red Plaguewind for 2 mana cheaper. Pretty cool card. It synergizes well with the deck. Planar Cleansing is just let's get rid of everything that isn't a land. Now we'll kind of start getting into some support spells and things like that before I get into the creatures. Mayael's Aria is a really, really fun enchantment. It synergizes really well with this deck, and it's essentially an alternate win condition. For 3 mana, you get an enchantment that says, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, if you control a creature with power 5 or greater. Then you gain 10 life if you control a creature with power 10 or greater. Then you win the game if you control a creature with power 20 or greater. So, it synergizes. I mean, I don't really know how else to explain it, you know? I mean, it's rare I don't have a creature with power 5 or greater out. Boom. My dudes get counters. Quite a few of my creatures can get to 10 or greater very easily. Gain me 10 life. And I actually have won games with this card multiple times, particularly with Mosswort Bridge Troll. Just beginning my upkeep, tap some of my creatures. Oh look, he got +20/+20. He's 25/25. I win the game. So it's a really fun card. True Conviction. This is my high I'm going to win more card. Double Strike and Lifelink. So if I'm low on life, this is really helpful. Actually, there's really no time where this isn't helpful. Titanic Ultimatum. That's my let's finish this game now card. Cast that late game, my creatures get +5/+5 for Strike, Lifelink, and Trample, and just get there. Where Ancients Tread, it's another enchantment that synergizes very well with the deck. Whenever a creature with power 5 or greater comes into play under my control, I can have Where Ancients Tread deal 5 damage to target creature or player. So, I guess you could probably consider this spot removal. Use Mayael's ability, get a dude, hit someone for 5, or kill someone's creature. Something like that. Defense of the Heart. This is an enchantment that should be included in every green deck, because if an opponent controls 3 or more creatures, I sack this and get 2 creature cards, put them into play. Any 2 creatures I want, for 4 mana. Pretty awesome. Privileged Position, don't really need to explain this one. For 5 mana, I get an enchantment that makes all my stuff hexproof. Pretty cool. These next few cards are my cheating creatures into play cards. Genesis Wave is just, it's a really fun card. 3 green and X, say I pay 12. I reveal the top 12 cards in my library. I can put any permanents with converted mana cost 12 or less from among them into play. So I get to pull a bunch of cards out and put a bunch of stuff into play usually. I play, you know, I'd say probably about 85% of this deck is permanents, so I'm going to hit a lot of stuff. Summoning Trap, you know, look at the top 7, put a creature from among them into the battlefield, rest on the bottom in any order. Plus if something gets countered, I can pay 0 for it, you know, cool card. Lurking Predators is one of my favorite cards in Magic. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, I reveal the top card of my library. If it's a creature, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, I may put it on the bottom. So whenever anyone casts a spell, anything, I reveal the top card. If it's a creature, I get it. If it's not, I can keep it on top, or I don't have to keep it on top and I can put it on the bottom. Quicksilver Amulet, 4 mana tap, put a creature from my hand onto the battlefield. Pretty straightforward. The next couple cards are cards that I use almost solely with Mayael. Lightning Greaves, Shroud and Haste. Most of the time I do it. I also have Swiftfoot Boots. I'll show them here together. Most of the time it's to protect Mayael from being targeted with the Shroud or Hexproof. Late game, the haste is actually very relevant. You know, player, I can use her ability instantly. Like, it's pretty sweet. Eternal Witness gets any card from my yard to my hands. Pretty cool. Seedborn Muse. She synergizes really well with this deck. I untap all my stuff during each other player's upkeep. Or, I'm sorry, untap step. So, I can use Mayael's ability every turn. That's mean. So, alright, now we're going to get into the real meat of the deck. These are my creatures that I can hit with Mayael. We'll start off with the big girl, Avacyn. An 8/8 Flying Vigilance that makes my stuff indestructible. Usually if I resolve her, the game's over. She's a bomb. I don't really know how else to explain her. She synergizes so well with this deck, and she makes it so overpowered, it's really silly. Baneslayer Angel, the card that used to be like $60 and is now like a $7 rare, I think. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. A 5/5 flying first strike lifelink, protection from demons and dragons. Protections are rarely relevant, but still, she's a 5/5 for 5 with flying first strike and lifelink. Hard to beat. Blazing Archon, really good protection. Really expensive to play, 9 mana for a 5/6, but creatures can't attack me. Like, and especially if I have Avacyn out and all of a sudden my stuff's indestructible too, I can swing out with my creatures and not have to worry about holding anything back to block. Pretty relevant. Iona, I include her in this deck along with those point them out now. I include her, Vorinclex, and Blightsteel Colossus in this deck. There are 3 cards that draw an insane amount of hate, but I keep them in the deck because a lot of times I only play them if someone is really making the game, you know, out of control or just really dumb. If someone's playing things that are just really making no one have fun, I will play Iona and I will name whatever color they are playing and lock them out of the game. Blightsteel Colossus, again, is kind of the same thing. Vorinclex is a card I'm actually very close to cutting Vorinclex just because he draws so much hate. I'll discuss him more when I get to him, but Iona is really good. You know, 7/7 flyer, choose a color, opponents can't cast spells of the chosen color. Pretty cool. Whoops. Hamletback Goliath. Again, he synergizes really well. He's a 6/6 for 7. Whenever another creature comes into play anywhere, me or my opponents, I get +1/+1 counters on him equal to that creature's power. So he gets huge really fast. He's another card that I can win with Miles Aria. Spearbreaker Behemoth. He's indestructible, and I can make a creature with power 5 or greater indestructible this turn. So if I don't have Iona, or Avacyn out, I can use him to protect some of my relevant creatures. Someone goes to Wrath, something like that. Terrastodon, a 9/9 for 8. He should be in every green deck. He hits 3 non-creature permanents, and for every one that I destroy, they get a 3/3 green beast. Okay, green elephant. I'm not all that scared of the green elephants. They're 3/3s. He's a 9/9. I play a lot of fatties. No big deal. Avenger Zendikar is amazing. Again, another card that should be included in every green deck. A 5/5 for 7 that gets me plants equal to the number of lands I control, and then landfall pumps those plants. He gets out of control really fast. Excuse me. Mosswort Bridge Troll, he was the one I was talking about earlier. 5/5 for 7 with auto regen, and I can tap any untapped creatures other than him with total power 10 or greater and give him +20/+20. He's awesome. Palaka Worm, Really fun card from Rise of the Eldrazi. A 7/7 Trampler, gains me 7 life when he comes into play, draws me a card when he dies. He's cool. Craterhoof Behemoth, he's a pretty new addition. A 5/5 with haste for 8, who Overwhelming Stampedes. Gives my creatures trample and +X/+X till end of turn. So usually if I hit him, I'm going to kill somebody. Paleoloth, 5/5 for 6. Whenever a creature with Power 5 or greater comes into play, under my control, I can bring a creature from my graveyard back to my hand. So he's one of the couple cards in this deck that is graveyard recursion for me. He's pretty relevant. Vorinclex, I guess I already talked about him. He lets me add extra mana, which is really the only reason I want to play him, is because I like getting the extra mana. I really hate his second ability. I think it's a really mean ability. You know, causing someone's land to not untap. Like, usually when I play this card, I had better be able to win the game pretty quick, or I'm going to die because he draws so much hate that people are going to gang up on me and slaughter me. So, prime time, you know, it's prime time. 6/6 Trample, gets me lands when he enters or attacks. Moldgraph Monstrosity is cool. When he dies, I can return 2 creatures at random from my graveyard to the battlefield. So he gets exiled, and I randomly get 2 dudes from my graveyard. Pretty cool. Rampaging Baloth, 6/6 for 6 with Trample, and he makes beasts when lands come into play. Pretty cool. Megalanoth, 6/6 for 6, Vigilance and Trample. Whenever he blocks a creature, he deals damage to that creature's controller equal to his power. So I block someone's dude, and their controller takes 6. Cool. Gisela, 5/5 Flying First Strike. Doubles the damage that would be dealt to my opponents or a permanent my opponents control. And prevents half the damage that would be dealt to me rounded up, or a permanent I control. So she encourages my opponents to attack each other and not me. Pretty cool. Godsire, 8/8 Vigilance that makes an 8/8 Beast token. Pretty cool. Nova Blastworm, whenever he attacks, destroy all other creatures. He's really funny if I have Avacyn out, because then he just Plague Winds every turn. Mycoid Shepherd, 5/4 for 4. Whenever him or another creature with power 5 or greater dies from my control, if they die, I can gain 5 life. So he helps me gain some life. If someone goes to wipe the board, I can gain a lot of life, things like that. Wormcoil, don't need to explain him. Blightsteel, I already talked about him. I've only ever killed 2 people with Blightsteel, and I felt bad doing it, because I really don't like Infect, but they were, you know, they were making the game very not fun for people, so Blightsteel, hit you for poison, kill you. He's a one-shot kill. Steel Hellkite, a 5/5 for 6 with a built-in Ratchet Bomb. Pretty cool. These last 3 are Planeswalkers. Sarkhan Vol, gives my dudes haste and helps me steal a dude. His ultimate is pretty awesome, 5/4/4 dragons. Garruk Primal Hunter, he's usually come into play, -3, draw a bunch of cards. He's really the only draw cards spell that I play in this deck. I mean, he's usually just, I'm going to fill my hand up. Pretty cool. And last but not least, we have Karn. I have never restarted the game with Karn. Usually it's, you know, play him, -3, exile a permanent. Usually it's just kind of get rid of things that I can't deal with right now. He's colorless removal, essentially. Hey guys, thanks for checking out my video on Mayael the Anima. For those of you who are interested, I recently started a blog focusing on EDH and how to build commander decks. If you want to check it out, the address is thegeneralisin edh.blogspot.com. Hope to hear from you. Alright guys, thanks for watching CMDR Decks. Please subscribe and favorite.